Welcome back in, everybody, to Pro Football Entertainment. I am Ben Parker. Privileged to have you on board tonight. We don't have Austin, we don't have Shane tonight. It's usually better when we have three of us. One of us plays the role of general manager, the other two kind of work as consultants. Tonight it's just me. We'll have the other guys back on later. We are working with the Cleveland Browns, and I've enjoyed studying the Cleveland Browns for several years now. It's a franchise that, while I'm not a huge fan of what the ownership has done, and I really do feel for the fan base. I would love to see this franchise just take off. Now, I really would. You can go all the way back to the 80s with Cleveland Browns suffering, right? So, I'm not going to dwell on that, but it is a franchise I would love to see have a lot of success. There's no reason they can't do that. Okay. And again, I know dysfunction is a word that's often been associated with it. Heartbreak and bad luck have also often been associated with it. There's no reason here in a year or two, if they put if they put a good roster in place, if they put a good coach in place, that they can't get this done. I'll stop there without saying anything further. Anyway, Cleveland, I am rooting for you. So tonight we're using the PFSN website and the mock simulator. We'll be working off of that. We'll try to get through all the different rounds tonight. I want to say this again. Uh, Things change in free agency, right? I don't necessarily base this on who you're losing in free agency. I assume that the best players you'll try to keep. I assume you'll lose some key contributors at several different position groups. And I'm well aware that the Cleveland Browns have a messy financial situation going on right now. I've been kind of pounding on them about it for a couple of years now. Much of that is related to the Deshaun Watson fiasco that has been just a nightmare. I mean, goodness gracious, just awful. Part of that too is the age of the offensive line and a couple of other contributing factors as well. But I'm well aware, there's a lot going on here in Cleveland. And depending on who you are and how you view it, y'all either have no quarterback, one quarterback, or two. Some people might even say three. So the quarterback situation is not good right now. I get that unless somebody steps up. So a lot going on here. When I do these mocks, I'm mostly focused on we basically know what the team's needs or weaknesses are. We're going to try to fix as many of those as we can. And we're also looking at who's available at these different selections, right? We're trying to figure out what's actually available there. If you see a guy here that I didn't pick or I didn't mention that you like, put it in there. I may not see it myself, but if you want everybody who's watching this video to see what you think about a certain player, by all means, put it in there and we'll work with it. All right, let's get started. I'm not going to do trades tonight just because of time's sake, but I will kind of mention what's being given to us. I'm not sure how realistic this first one is, but hey, maybe. Chicago Bears offering pick 25, 57, 89, 129, and a second rounder in 27 for this. It's a lot. Perhaps not enough depending on who you are. And then the Ravens are offering 14, 45, and 80. I'm not gonna take those trades up tonight. One, because I don't want to debate how realistic they are. Number two, I don't want to debate whether or not these teams would actually make those offers. Number three is just for time's sake. We'll stick and pick. So just want you to kind of know what the simulator's laying out there. Cleveland's got a lot of picks. Dadgummit. Some of these picks I'll talk more than others. But anyway, 6, 24, 39, 70, 107, 139, 144, and even four picks after that. We have a lot to work with. This particular simulator suggests that almost all of their needs are on the offensive side of the football, which I would largely agree with. I think most of you would as well. Quarterback, offensive tackle, offensive guard, wide receiver, center is the needs that PFSN has listed. I've got basically the same thing. Offensive line, all three positions, all three types of positions. Wide receiver, I posted edge because if we can grab another guy who can get pressure on the quarterback, why not? And then beyond that, listen, I know we've got a tremendously good defense. If there's a defensive player sitting there that we like, That just seems to be better on our board by significantly better than the offensive players we're looking at. We will not hesitate to take a defensive player. The only exception to that will be probably in the first round, where I do feel like the situation is so dire right now on the offensive line because of age and injuries mainly. We may very well move ahead and pick an offensive lineman over a top defensive player. But at the farther down with the draft we get, I will not hesitate to take defensive players. If you feel like the needs list needs to be in a different priority, by all means, post that. Okay. Here we go. Couple of defensive players going to be real hard to turn down. That's Rueben Bain and Caleb Downs, especially Rueben Bain. I led off with an edge rusher being maybe my third need after offensive lineman and wide receiver. It'd be really hard to turn down Rueben Bain. I'm gonna tell you what. I like him better than I like Spencer Fano, but Spencer Fano is a guy that I really like too. If you haven't watched Spencer Fano run block, watch his athleticism, watch his ability to get around and move around. Go check it out. You know, it's something that Cleveland could really use. He's not as good at pass blocking, but I felt like he holds up in pass blocking. And I'm one of those people, if I don't see you holding up in pass blocking at the tackle spot, I'm gonna have a real hard time drafting you in the top 40. It's the main reason I have problems with a couple of other tackle prospects. I know people who don't feel that way. There are people, smart people, hardworking people who, if a tackle looks really good at run blocking and he struggles at pass blocking, they still will trot him right up the board. And I don't like doing that with tackles. I really don't. I really need my tackles to at least hold up in pass blocking, even against the fast edges. I need them to do that. And while I'm not suggesting that Spencer Fano is on the plus side of pass blocking, I do feel like we've seen enough out of him to where I can feel good about making him a pass blocker over the next few years. Excuse me, I'm sorry about the noise. Working off of a dry throat tonight. Anyway, that's enough talk. There are plenty of guys here to like. Okay. Rueben Bain, Caleb Downs, love them both. Keldrick Falk, like him too. Mansour Delane, like him as well. Going to take Spencer Fano out of Utah. That the offensive line, again, I tell teams not to do this all the time. I'm being a little bit of a hypocrite here. Don't pass up a good football player to go get a position of need, like a Rueben Bain or like a Caleb Downs. Don't do it unless it's a dire situation and it's relatively close as far as how much you like the football player. I feel like Rueben Bain will make a bigger impact right away. Over the next few years, though, I feel like Spencer Fano can hold his own there. Okay. What are we being offered? 24 and well, we have 24. We're being offered 31 and 63. Being offered 48, 79, and a 27 second rounder. Certainly intriguing. We won't be doing trades tonight. I'm going to go right back to offensive line here. Ian Nature, I apologize if I'm mispronouncing it. That's the guy I would be looking at right there out of Arizona State. Still needs to develop some, but I like that guy. Yeah, there are guys here I really like, but not here at 24. And I love Connor Lew. I'm going to try my darndest to get him later, but again, not here at 24. So let's go check out the wide receivers. This is getting tempting right here. The best offensive lineman I saw right here is Ian Nature. But I'm not sure I want to run two tackles out there. Play the same position anyway. Let's go wide receiver. I'll do big board real quick just so y'all can see it. Dang it. Sonny Styles is sitting right here. I don't think there's any chance Sonny Styles is going to be sitting here. If he were sitting right here at 24, I would take him, and that's the end of it. I don't honestly feel like there's any way that Sonny Styles gets outside the top 18 picks, really. You start looking right here. The Miami Dolphins at 11, I feel like would enjoy having Sonny Styles. The Dallas Cowboys at number 12 could really use Sonny Styles. The Buccaneers here at 15 would love to have Sonny Styles. They would love. That might be my favorite match out of the entire draft is Sonny Styles to the Buccaneers. And then again, pick 20 here with the Cowboys. There's no way Sonny Styles is going to be here, so I'm going to pretend like he's not sitting there. But you come draft night, if Sonny Styles is sitting here at 24, I know we don't need defense. I don't care. We're drafting Sonny Styles. Just a tremendous football player. He's got this. He's got the height. He's got the size. He's got the athleticism. He's got the pass coverage skills that is unusual for linebackers, and he can help smother the run. So I really love Sonny Styles. I can't say enough good things about him. I'm going to pretend like he's not there, though, okay? For realistic scenarios here. KC Concepcion. I'm going to go right back here to wide receiver, okay? KC Concepcion and Denzel Boston and even Chris Bell to a degree, and even Jacoby Lane to a degree. I'm higher on Lane than a lot of people are. But without causing controversy here, I feel like KC Concepcion, Denzel Boston, I think Cleveland fans would enjoy having both guys. The Cleveland quarterbacks would enjoy having both guys. Okay, there's no question about it. I take your pick. Concepcion's a much smaller, faster guy with good hand skills and a tremendous amount of toughness. I love Concepcion's game. Concepcion did a tremendous job at NC State, transferred over to Texas A&M, where we were all kind of waiting to see how he would do. He did just fine at Texas A&M, playing against some of the best athletes that the country has to offer. KC Concepcion, in spite of the size factor, is a legitimate first round NFL pick. No question about it. Denzel Boston was is not as good as I would hope, considering what his last name is, and yet still, this is a polished receiver with plenty of size and good hands. And I have him somewhere in the really early second round, but we're sitting here at 24 and we need a receiver. And, these guys are just sitting right here. The offensive line is not sitting here the way I was hoping it would be. For instance, Vega Ioane is probably not going to be sitting here at 24, but if he were, I would draft him immediately. No questions asked. That didn't happen, right? So you take your pick. Y'all tell me what you want, but I'm go ahead and take KC Concepcion here. We'll try to add to the speed of the team as well as good hands. What are we getting offered in terms of trade? 51 and a 27 third, 49 and the 97. I'm offensive line hunting. I'm not going to hide that. I don't do that with most teams, but I'm doing it here. Blake Miller is a guy I'm not as high on. I just don't have him rated this high. Not 39 and not 45, but a lot of people do. And you might. And if you like Blake Miller, that's fine. But he also plays the same position that Spencer Fano plays. So we've already drafted right tackle. Keep that in mind as we move forward. I'll tell you what, adding Jennings Dunker right here. If you're not familiar with Jennings Dunker, that's fine. There's no way that we can all know everybody, but Jennings Dunker is a character and a football player and a grown man. So if that's what you like, Dunker is the guy, as well as a heck of a prospect. I am very interested in grabbing him here at 39. I know there's a 71 rating here. I'm higher on Dunker than that. I know a lot of people who are. Connor Lew, I would love to go back and grab with one of those later picks. Just for kicks, wide receiver. There's still Jacoby Lane sitting here, still Chris Brazzell. This would not be bad. Listen, I know we've already drafted a wide receiver, but we could definitely add two of them. Okay, there's nothing wrong with that, considering how good our defense is, considering how much our quarterbacks have struggled. There would be nothing wrong with adding two wide receivers here. I know teams that do that often get criticized for double dipping. There is nothing wrong with that. Okay. When you go back and you look at the history of double dipping, it doesn't always work out, but that starts to be a mathematical thing, not necessarily a system or draft thing, right? Other times it works out brilliantly, and some of the more recent examples of double dipping have actually worked out really well. So it really comes down to team knowing how to use it. But if you want a big receiver to go along with the guy we just picked up, which is KC Concepcion, then Jacoby Lane would be the guy, and so would Chris Brazzell. Brazzell is faster and runs a lot more deep routes and has a little bit smoother in out in terms of breaks. But Jacoby Lane is dominant in the red zone and still offers other things such as boundary catches and a little bit of in route work as well. If you want a big guy, there's nothing wrong with that. And in fact, if Jennings Dunker weren't sitting here and if we didn't need offensive line so bad, I would consider that. I'm still considering it actually. Quarterbacks, I haven't really hardly mentioned them. Nussmeier is still sitting there. Emmett Johnson sitting there. Tight end, decent guys for later. Let's go look at defense real quick. Lee Hunter, Anthony Hill, Emmanuel McNeil Warren. I like all three of these guys. And there's more down here that I like. Chris Johnson. But we just don't need the defenses badly. We're kind of the opposite of the Cincinnati Bengals, right? The Bengals need defense almost as badly as we need offense here for Cleveland. I like these players, but the offense is just such a greater need here. So for me, it would come down to Jacoby Lane, Chris Brazzell, or Jennings Dunker. That would be the guys I would be looking at. Considering age, injury of offensive line, considering the financial mess that we're in, considering how I would love to set us up for, long-term future success, I'm gonna go ahead and pull in Jennings Dunker here from Iowa. But just know I'm very tempted by Jacoby Lane and Chris Brazzell. What's our next pick? It's at 70. Those two wide receivers would probably be gone. Based on this mock simulator, I'm sure some of you are thinking, well, Dunker might be there at 70, and he might be. But in real life, there's no way we could know that Dunker would be sitting there. All right. So Dunker's the guy we want. I'm higher on him than 71 anyway. Dunker's the guy we're going to take. 83 and 119 for 70. What have we done so far? All offense. Spencer Fano, KC Concepcion, Jennings Dunker. I've got to know if those wide receivers are still sitting there and they're not. They're gone. So the guys with the size are gone. Antonio Williams from Clemson. Zachariah Branch, small but fast. Brennan Thompson from Mississippi State, small, really small, but really fast. Kevin Coleman, small guy. Bryce Lance, big guy from a small school. And there's more guys here. So let's move away from this. Let's look at offensive tackle. Caleb Tiernan is a guy that we would definitely be considering out of Northwestern. There's no doubt about it. That could help us out. Not as much in love with these guards at pick 70. This is where I'm going to go. I told you guys I was going to do this. I've done, I don't know, probably a dozen Cleveland Browns mock drafts over the past few months here. Connor Lew is a guy out of Auburn that I have rated higher, but it's because of how good I like what he can do. His ability to run block at Auburn against really good Southeastern Conference defensive lines that are full of NFL prospects, his ability to push and drive, and they can run the ball to either side of him is beautiful. It really is. Now, he doesn't move around particularly well. He does not have the athleticism to do a lot of zone blocking. You're not going to see him pull and trap as much. Okay. So if you need your center to do that, this is not the guy. But if you're okay with your center being the guy who anchors well and does pretty good in pass coverage, but is a almost literally a road grader in terms of run blocking, just straightforward, and you can let guys run to either side of him, then Connor Lew is the guy. And so this is right within the range. I'm not being controversial by picking him at 70, even though I would consider him even higher than this. And keep in mind, we already added Spencer Fano, who is the athletic zone blocking, pull and trap guy who can basically go anywhere. So we've already got one offensive lineman who can do that. Jennings Dunker can also move around, not as much as Fano, but Jennings Dunker can move around in run blocking as well. Going to add a guy here in Connor Lew, who is just an absolute bulldozer straight up the middle. What have we done? It's been all offense, okay? I didn't hide the fact that I was going to try to do that. Again, at some of these picks, had there been a defensive player I was in love with, I would have done it. But I think most fans understand the need for offense here. Fano, Concepcion, Dunker, Connor Lew. Let's rip through some of these a little bit quicker here. I won't go position chopping too much. Derek Moore, edge out of Michigan. You want a guy that can get some pressure on the quarterback. That may be what we actually end up doing. Chandler Rivers, if you want to add another cornerback into the mix, this is a guy who played a lot of outside CB in college, probably as a flex, kind of a slot outside flex, depending on the week, really. Bud Clark at safety, very much worth looking at. Yeah, so I've already seen what I want here. We're going to take Derek Moore out of Michigan. Let me get you his height and weight real quick. 6'3", 254. Good edge, not necessarily a burner off the edge, but good speed off the edge. And again, like most of the Michigan players, presents the physicality. So he would fit right in with what Cleveland is already doing. And again, this is probably not a guy that would start right away for us, but as time goes on, if you need to jettison a defensive player or two over the next couple of seasons, this guy, in theory, would be waiting here as part of the pipeline to just take over a starting position and save you that money. And you could feel much better about letting a guy go. Round five, getting to some nitty gritty stuff here. Chandler Rivers still sitting there. I'll probably take him. Garrett Nussmeier here. Let's talk about quarterback. I don't think Garrett Nussmeier is going to fall this far. I think too many people like him to let him fall this far. Quarterback. We know we have Deshaun Watson paying a boatload of money for him not to play. And I personally don't want him back on the team. I don't want him in the building. I don't want him as part of the franchise. That's just my personal feeling. Maybe some of you feel differently. I know a lot of people who feel even more strongly about it than I do, but I just personally would rather move on from Deshaun Watson. You have Shedeur Sanders, who I was a fan of at draft time. Not many people were, and very mixed results when he got on the field for Cleveland. So stay tuned on the Shedeur Sanders thing. Dylan Gabriel, I believe it is, who it can function, smart guy, limited arm. I'm not sure that you're going to get a lot there if you're Cleveland. So the question really gets to be, Garrett Nussmeier comes in at about 6'2", not a huge guy, but not a deficit guy either in terms of size. The arm strength is fine. It's NFL arm strength, but there's nothing extra there. You're certainly not approaching a Matthew Stafford arm or a Patrick Mahomes arm or a Josh Allen arm. It's not even close. It's not even close here in arm strength to, let me pick him up, to Drew Aller, who's down here. Drew Aller has way better arm strength in terms of being able to get the football downfield than Garrett Nussmeier. Nussmeier's produced, though. You know, you had 2 years at LSU with 24 tape being better than 25 tape. But, you know, you had the injury kicking in there on the 25 tape, and he looks back healthy again now, was able to play in the Senior Bowl. And no, the Senior Bowl MVP doesn't mean anything to me, okay? But this is a guy that produced, okay? So some of you may be thinking, hey, Garrett Nussmeier's a guy who back during the summer would have been one of the leading candidates to be a top, first round kind of a draft pick at quarterback. He's sitting down here at round 5. Should we talk about that? Yes. Yes, Cleveland should talk about that. I personally would rather just go another year with the quarterbacks we've got and not throw another young quarterback into that mix unless it was just a really high caliber prospect. And I don't view Garrett Nussmeier that way. I view him as a solid, decent prospect, worth taking very much in this area. If I see somebody I like better, and by the way, in terms of arm strength, Carson Beck has better arm strength. He's just, the decision making and the interceptions have struggled. Drew Aller looks like he was made in a quarterback factory. But again, the light just hasn't come on and the production hasn't been there. So if I were going to add another quarterback to this mix, it probably would not be Nussmeier. It probably would be either Beck or Aller later with bigger arms. What else are we looking at here? Let's look on def. Let's just go back to the overall list here. I'm sorry for bouncing around. Names here I like. Not saying people I have to have. Let's see if they've got somebody ranked lower that I want to add here. Defensive tackle. Dante Corleone. Very much worth pick 139. Keep that in mind. Jashawn Barham. If you want a Michigan guy who's very physical, that's a guy. Kyle Lewis. If you want a very light linebacker, let's get his height, weight. Yeah, 6'2", 224, light guy, but a bit of a playmaker and holds up in pass coverage. Kyle Lewis is the guy coming in from Pittsburgh. CB, again, I already mentioned Chandler Rivers. That's probably where I'll go because I think I mentioned him on the last round. Nobody here at safety that jumps out necessarily. Running back, Singleton and Hemby both fine. Wide receiver, Montgomery and Cameron, both fine picks, but not what we need based on what things have happened. Offensive line. Do I dare add a fourth offensive lineman? You're darn right I do, but I don't see anybody that I have to have in this particular pick. So back to defense, back to corner. It's going to be Chandler Rivers. I actually have a much higher grade on Chandler Rivers than this, but that's fine that they have him sitting here. And we'll take him here at 139. Add him to the room. Kyle Lewis still sitting there. Carson Beck still sitting there. I believe this is where I'm going to do it. Let's settle in on Carson Beck for just a second. A lot of y'all saw him at Georgia. A lot of y'all saw him at Miami. There's no question that the tools to be a all-pro at quarterback are here, but the decision making has been terrible, and the interceptions at times have been ugly. But the arm strength is unchallenged. I mean, as far as him having it, he's 6'4", 220, mobile enough to get out of trouble. There's really nothing stopping us from adding Carson Beck here. We already pounded the offensive line. We added a wide receiver. We added an edge on defense. We added a cornerback on defense. There's nothing stopping us from adding Carson Beck here. If you've seen him and you didn't like it, I didn't like it either. Okay, but it's hard to find a quarterback with this much arm talent sitting down here in this round. So that's what I'm going to do. Not going to worry about what we're being offered in trades anymore. How many picks do we have left? 4 picks left. Kyle Lewis still sitting there. Again, smaller guy, but playmaker and holds up in pass coverage. Nicholas Singleton. I may go Nick Singleton here in a second. Let's see what else is here. Max Llewellyn. If you want a grown man to come out and play for you, coming out of Iowa, Max Llewellyn's the guy. Tape's a little inconsistent, though. There were even times I saw him pulled off the field because he didn't do his assignment like he was supposed to, but he did play better as the year went on. Dante Corleone is still sitting there. I know. Listen, I would take him in a heartbeat here in a second, but let's stick with that. Nicholas Singleton, 6'2", 226. This is a guy who coming out of high school, a lot of hype. and didn't quite live up to that. But if you watch the tape at Penn State, especially in 2024, the 24 tape was way better than the 25 tape. So again, it's always a question, right? Which tape version do I believe? Do I believe the brilliant year before last, or do I believe, and I say brilliant, the really good year before last, or do I believe the most recent set of tape? It's always a question to be debated. But here in this round, it's no problem taking Nicholas Singleton. He certainly has the talent. It's just, can he live up to that? We'll draft Nick Singleton here at running back. Going to be looking at a whole different set of players here. Barham still sitting here. Dalen Everett sitting here. That's a decent guy out of Georgia. All right, let's look back at offensive line. The centers I would really be interested in are gone. We've already drafted center. Inez Cooper. I told y'all, I asked y'all, did I dare to draft four offensive linemen? And yes, Cooper's the guy I may go after here. Emil Wagner's a guy I would be interested in as well. If you see a prospect you like, feel free to put that into the comments. I'm just zipping through real quick here. Linebacker. Betcher's a guy I like. Everett and Prysock. Nothing wrong with those two picks right here at this spot. Decent safeties at this spot. Probably more backups or rotational guys, to be honest. Okay, let's do it. Let's go back here to offensive guard. Inez Cooper, 6'6", 350, very large man. Okay, coming out of Miami, played a bunch of games. I mean, a bunch of games. So I not maybe your highest end, your highest ceiling offensive line prospect, but for a sixth round pick, this is a guy who could be starting for you. Depending on how things shake out. So let's do it. Inez Cooper, very large man coming out of the Miami Hurricanes. Still here, we've got two more picks. Barham and Everett. I'm probably going to pick one of those guys. Prysock here, Stribling here. CJ Daniels here. Wesley Williams is a guy out of Duke. Not a lot of people giving him a lot of a love right now, but certainly a guy worth drafting. Check on one thing. I haven't actually, yeah, I did. I added a cornerback already. We don't necessarily need another cornerback. If we hadn't already drafted a cornerback, I'd take Dalen Everett right here. Let's go ahead and do Deshaun Barham. I've done this for a number of teams. This guy would immediately be a good rotational guy, physical, loves the contact, works out in space a little bit as far as moving on screens and sweeps. Very physical guy. Uh, you know, any defense would love to have him as part of the rotation. Could it be a starter someday? Probably, but not guaranteed. But in any case, this is a guy worth drafting. We have one pick left. It's getting thin. Still a little position shopping here. Wide receiver. There are guys here, but nobody that I just have to have. Tight end. Jack Velling out of Michigan State is a guy that probably won't get drafted, but certainly will land on an NFL team somewhere as an undrafted prospect. So, that's a name to keep in mind. Looking through the offensive lineman here. Le'Veon Moss. Did we draft a running back yet? I'm trying to remember. Yeah, we already did. So I kind of hate to add another running back. But I don't know if is there a position group we haven't touched yet? I've kind of lost track. I may get criticized for doing this, but the best player I saw on the board for my money to this point is Le'Veon Moss. 5'11", 215. I like this guy. This guy's going to get drafted. I am fairly certain. So picking him up in the seventh round. I know it's our second running back, so maybe we wouldn't really do that, but I'm going to go ahead and do it tonight just to illustrate the fact that I believe in him. Okay, so here's what we did, and we'll wrap this up. It's been a little bit long, but that is because Cleveland had so many picks. Okay, heavy offensive line. We drafted four of them. I really wanted to come away from this draft with three of them, and was willing to come away with four or even five. We've done that. So Spencer Fano, Jennings Dunker, Connor Lew, and Inez Cooper out of Miami. Wide receiver spot. I I wish the board had broke differently so we could have drafted two wide receivers that we liked. It didn't break that way. Oh well, that's life. The wide receivers are going to go. So Concepcion is the one we ultimately came away with. We added several defensive guys just because we have so many picks, but Derek Moore, edge from Michigan, Chandler Rivers, CB from Duke, and Jaysean Barham, edge from Michigan. And then we added a quarterback with Carson Beck. I do like the idea. If we're going to add another young quarterback to a quarterback room that's already got three guys, depending on Watson, Dylan Gabriel, and Shedeur Sanders, Carson Beck is a guy that has a big arm and an NFL body type. Okay, so that's really the reason I would be interested in adding him on. Okay. And then two running backs. I didn't plan to get draft running backs necessarily. That's just who was sitting there. Nick Singleton out of Penn State, Le'Veon Moss out of Texas A&M. All right, that's it. This has been a long one, but again, Cleveland had so many picks, so we really appreciate you being a part. This is Pro Football Entertainment. We have a lot of things going on, so go check it out on this channel once you're done here. All right, appreciate it. Have a great one. Bye.